What a rumour to show up? Lies. They're all lies. I'm just a spectator who got used to the pass. So far, so good. Yeah, that's a starting point. Of course, they're good. That's what I'm saying.
Limited to the use of offense or offensive language or gestures, the incitement of hatred or violence, or partaking in indecent or racist chanting. E. Comply with FB's conditions of entry at all venues and any ticket conditions. F. Not to carry white or foreign flags or missions, including onto the field of play or any other spectators. G. Not to enter the field of play or its surroundings without lawful authority. And H. Conduct themselves in a manner that enhances rather than injures the reputation and federation of FB, Football Federation Australia, FFA, and football generally. Any person who does not comply with this code or who is in the opinion of the club and or FB causes or is reasonably likely to cause disturbance may be evicted in the venue and banned from attending future matches held on behalf of FB. Any offender who then breaches the code order against them may be charged with trespass, subject to further penalties and sanctions, including possibility of further legal action.
Stephen. That's me.
Who was with you on Monday? No. Oh, sorry, which comp? Which camp?
I know what I'm doing.
Oh, he was...
You guys going tomorrow?
No, I'm not
This
doing
is a spectator code of behaviour.
Where are you up to?
It is important that spectators on
it's a game at 3 o'clock.
fixture are able to enjoy the match in a
Manningham?
safe and comfortable environment.
Teddy's Reserve?
Each person present at a FV fixture must A. Respect the decisions of the match.
No. Home of the Matildas.
Respect the rights
It's
of every person.
FB, the Merging, and
Oh,
Brunswick,
Home of the
Juventus.
Language, politics,
Yeah, Bundoora.
national or ethnic origin. C.
So I've got volleyball at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and then football 3 o'clock.
Spectators
For a dull day.
Nope.
coaches, and players. D. Not
That
to
was a
engage
very
in
long
discrimination, harassment, or abuse of
Yeah.
any form, whether lawful or otherwise, including but not limited to the use of obscene or offensive language or gestures, the incitement of hatred or violence, or partaking in indecent or racist chanting. E. Complying with these conditions of entry at all venues and any ticket conditions. F. Not to carry light or foreign flags or missiles, including on street, play or at other spectators. G. Not to enter the field of play or its surroundings without lawful authority. And
Who was good
H.
for Essendon?
Conduct themselves in a manner that is weird rather than injures the reputation and federation of FA. Football Federation structure.
Yep. Emily Sutcliffe? Oh, that's a good one. See, why are you so frustrated when you've got such great material? I haven't done throw one for the
Ladies and gentlemen, on tonight's fixtures between Oakleigh and South Melbourne, round 7 for NPLVIC. Tonight's lineup, starting for the Oakleigh Cannons, number 11, Munir Adus, number 4, Brody Boyce,
In the Victorian
in
football,
goal,
in the
number 1,
Victorian,
Nicholas
in the
Healy,
NPL Victoria era.
number 10, Captain Joe Yes, number 3, Connor Hampson, number 19, Oliver Kumalay, number 8, Cameron McGliff, number 9, Alex Salmon, number 14, Kingsley Sinclair, number 7, Pierce Swearing, and number 23, Emlyn Wellsmore. On the bench for the Oakleigh Cannons tonight, number 25, Roy Gregory, number 18, Noah Holmes,
Oh, you're...
number 47, Asad Yasukovic, number 13, Hamish Miller,
Oh, get off here then.
number 22, Stephen Valentine, and the reserve lock is number 21, Brendan White.
Good. Oscar's annoyed, but he won't tell me why.
For the visitors, South Melbourne, number 21, Ross Archibald, number 8, Mario Garcia,
I don't.
24, Noel Bernarda, number 7, Andy Brennan, number 23, Morgan Evans, number 4, Marco Yakovic, number 3, Jordan Lampard, number 1, Javier Lopez, number 5, Jake Marshall, number 23,
good podcast.
Maximilian Nicola. And number 9, Harris Sawyer.
It's because I talked to
night number 18. Cooper Halfpenny. Number 8.
Fair enough.
Lucas
To be fair, I was recording because in the same
number
place.
20, Willem Lewis. Number 16, Emil
I thought it was a fairly comprehensive analysis.
Carlos. Number 15, Sax Terry. And number 11, Paul Fox.
I would actually quite like that. I don't put everyone after night together. It's a great song. Red Room. Not Steve Lacey. Hiatus Coyote. Sorry.
Do you reckon they'll the bot
Possibly. You do have this like very directional line. To be fair, I had mine turned off. I could turn it back off again.
No. I asked him, see what's going to play in commercial tracks.
I can't really hear
I don't know if it's commercial or not.
Yeah, this one.
I can hear it though.
I hope so. I hope to get that. I guess so.
Is that why you're mad at me?
I'm still trying to learn.
Why are you so upset?
I worked it out. I just worked it out. Now that I worked it out, I feel bad. No.
Who's there?
Oh, it is.
I'm really upset too.
Hang on, I'm really upset.
Yes, keep playing.
Oakleigh Cannons v South Melbourne under the Friday night lights at Jack Edwards Reserve. It doesn't get much bigger than this in NPL Victoria. Two perennial powerhouses, top flight mainstays who have contested big games on grand stages in this competition over the years meet for another big one in 2024. Two of the new season's undefeated starts going on the line as top of the table South Melbourne travel to Oakleigh's home turf, currently sitting in 5th. And a venue that hasn't traditionally in NPL Victoria times been a happy hunter ground for them, South. But last time they were here, round 7 last year, was a 1-0 win on that day. Josh Wallen, I should say, the scorer of the winner. And it was South who had the last laugh at the end of that season. They met 3 times, and Hellas got a thrilling win in the semi-final. But that's last year. This is a new season, and it's an important game whenever these sides meet. It doesn't matter where they're placed on the table. You always circle Oakleigh and South Melbourne as a fixture on your NPL Victoria calendar, but especially so when they've had the starts to the season that these two sides have had. Should be an absolute cracker here at Jack Edwards. Thank you for your company wherever you're tuning in from on NPL Victoria. Lockie Flanagan in commentary, joined alongside by Oscar Rutherford.
Lockie, as you say, nights like this is what NPL Victoria is all about. Oakleigh and South Melbourne going head-to-head. In your introduction, you mentioned that it's 5th against 1st, but of course that's an Oakleigh side in 5th with a game in hand, and if they were to win that, it would take them up to 2nd, which tells you all you need to know about how strong Oakleigh's start to the season has been, albeit disrupted for a variety of reasons. And yeah, tonight's as big a test as it gets, taking on South Melbourne, this perennial powerhouse. Oakleigh, of course, looking to avenge last season's semi-final defeat as well. And lots of new faces, lots of new names for both teams compared to what we had last season. So interesting to see how they both line up against each other tonight.
Yeah, very interesting to see what those lineups will look like, both tactically and in terms of the actual 11, to which there are a couple of changes for the visiting South Melbourne. 2 from the side that secured a 4-1 win against Altona Magic. Emil Payos and Cooper Halfpenny, 2 youngsters dropping to the bench in place of some experienced heads, Andy Brennan and Ross Archibald, returning to the starting 11. While for the Oakleigh Cannons, a 4-1 win for them too here at Jack Edwards, a venue where they've been, well, but for the time they played South Melbourne last season, all but imperious in the last 2 campaigns, and it's a good inclusion to their starting 11. Connor Hampson makes his starting return from injury, having come off the bench last week in place of Hamish Miller, while a curious re-entry on the bench for Oakleigh, Stefan Valentini, is back, and his presence on the pine looms large. As we get set for kickoff here at Jack Edwards, South Melbourne in the white, Oakleigh in the navy blue. Adam Bavka, the man in the middle, and all is in readiness. And we're underway here at Jack Edwards, and great to see a very decent crowd in the house under the Friday night lights. It's always a good venue to come and watch football, but when there's a contest between 2 heavyweights such as this one, Oscar, there's all the more incentive.
And 2 teams who like to start fast, Lucky, as well. We've seen that in recent weeks for both of these teams, including last time out. So these first few minutes, I think, will be telling. We were discussing pre-game about how South would approach this game. We've seen them be a little bit more adventurous from time to time, particularly with their press and really trying to pin back the opposition. So will they persist with that approach, that new adventurous approach against this Oakleigh team, who are, of course, so well drilled and so difficult to put under that much pressure?
And the big test for Oakleigh is inside this opening couple of minutes. Or maybe it's for South, as Munibatis is on the charge, stands up a nice looking cross but flicked away at the first time of asking by Jordan Lampard on the left side of the defence, and you have to clear for safety anytime Alex Salmon is nipping at your heels. 5 goals in 5 games, but he did have a couple chalked off in that cancelled 45 minutes as well against Altona. Here's Pierce Waring in the starting 11. He scored in that replacement fixture against Altona. Contested well by Sawyer on the first and second instance. Mikola given one to chase, but Boyce again just sends a corkscrewing clearance away from goal. But Oakleigh, they've done better than the last couple of sides that have faced South. They scored in the opening 90 seconds of each of the 3 halves that they've played into this game. Altona caught out twice, Heidelberg caught out inside 2 minutes, but a big test bruise here from the long throw of Max Mikola, Roscoe.
Indeed, for the first time tonight, the Max Mikola long throw sent towards Sawyer. It's a moment of panic for Oakleigh, but they do eventually send the ball clear. Lampard returns it to the box, and Nick Feely comes out to punch. Brennan on the follow. He just didn't quite make the right kind of contact, Andy Brennan, but the first real attempt on goal for South Melbourne. As you mentioned, lucky these two teams you'd think would have a focus on just getting through this first phase unscathed. One of the great benefits of the commentary position here at Jack Edwards is being so up and close with the action and getting to see, for example, in that last passage of play, just how physical and how much of a battering ram Harry Sawyer is.
Particularly when you throw the effects mic into the equation, you get all the oofs and low frequency grunts of all these random physical and aerial challenges.
Some calls there for a foul on Max Mikola, but referee Adam Babkar happy to let things play. South attempted to play out. They've given the ball away to the dangerous Adis, who wins a foul as Mario Barcia's challenge is mistimed.
I feel like just the one goal in the opening 5 games of the season for Munibatis doesn't really do justice to how impressive his start to life in an Oakleigh shirt has been. I mean, only the one goal, which came last week against Gully, the opener, but he's just a constant threat on that left-hand side with the drive and creativity that he brings to the 11.
No doubt he's excelled in an Oakleigh shirt, scoring that goal last week. Another person who scored last time out was Joe Guest, including from a dead ball situation. So here's his first attempt tonight. It's a good ball, which is in the end comfortably claimed by Javi Lopez. Of course, the new threat, or the returning threat for Oakleigh, with Connor Hampson back in the team, and that Curzon-Ashton connection with Guest and Hampson.
I've never seen telepathy in the wild, but Joe Guest and Connor Hampson about as close as it gets, as Bernarda was coming from an offside, or was offside, wasn't coming back from an offside position. It was always offside to begin with. No stranger to a goal against Oakleigh, though. And here at Jack Edwards, Noel Bernarda. All 3 of the goals that he has scored against the Cannons have come at this venue, including his first game here for Green Gully. Launched forward by Feely. Easy pickings for Marko Jankovic on the first instance. It was an acrobatic lump into the air by Mario Barcia that was very nearly made to look quite good by his teammates. Adis was caught on his haunches there. Mikola. Every challenge, every physical contest is a firm one as it stood up in the Sawyer direction, glanced away. That time by the Oakleigh defence, only as far as Brennan, whose cross takes a double deflection. Closed down nicely by Kingsley Sinclair, who in pre-season predictions you wouldn't necessarily have expected him, Oscar, to be locking down the left-back slot, but he's really sort of made that spot his own in recent weeks. Although here's a chance potentially for South. Bernarda scrapping to try and keep it a South ball, but ultimately to no avail. A strong challenge from Barcia. It's just pinball at the moment. Either side can really bring it under their spell, such as the intensity of I took a look at the time clock. I can scarcely believe it's nearly 7 minutes played here already.
Yeah, hardly a chance to breathe in the opening exchanges. Like you mentioned, Kingsley Sinclair's adaptation to that fullback position. Of course, a quality that CT has in getting his players comfortable playing in a few different positions. Sinclair still a youngster, only 23 years of age, so very much has time on his side to develop and build on his existing attributes, and we're seeing that this season in his second season with the Oakleigh Cannons. That ball there dealt with by Marshall. As it's now the home team who will attempt the throw-in in the final third. That one finds its way through towards Salmon. On the follow-up there was Guest, who just for a moment you thought maybe he was going to get a shot away from a really dangerous position. And instead, the man we were just speaking about, Sinclair, will take the throw-in. It's good strength from Waring, and they try the same move again, Oakleigh. Joe Guest yet again racing through and taking it off his teammates' toes. But Javi Lopez was alert to the danger. This is Evans, the fullback position for South. Coming away with it, though, was Adis for the Cannons. And really neither team's having us been able to put together a sustained spell of possession, Lockie, just with the way that they're so forward-thinking when they get the ball, both teams. We'll see another throw coming the Cannons' way. On that far side, you see plenty of spectators on the fence as well as in the grandstand. Two great clubs, and the two winningest great clubs over the last few seasons, Oakleigh and South Melbourne, going head to head. Adis retreats to Sinclair, and in the end the ball finds its way all the way back to Brodie Boyce, a player who made himself an ever-present in the Oakleigh backline last season. Once again, Oakleigh this time play it inside. It's McGill back out towards Adis. Returns the ball to his midfielder, so a little bit more patience on display from Oakleigh in this phase. Combination between Adis and Sinclair works out. Stillman of Adis. Touch from Salmon. Max Mikola back supporting his defence. Still though, the Cannons go on. This is Wellsmore. Goes the early cross. It's an important intervention. And in the end, South get the ball clear. Not as perhaps convincingly as they'd like, but it's effective nonetheless. And South survive really as much of a sustained spell of pressure as we've seen all game, Lockie.
I don't want to sing his praises just too highly, too frequently when it is only 10.5 minutes played and we haven't had a goal for either side. But Munib Adis is just an unrelenting player. It's very rare that you see someone who is so sort of, I guess, composed, able in their physicality, but gifted at the same time technically. You usually, particularly in NPL Victoria, you get one or the other or a bit of both, but he seems to have each of those qualities in equal measure. And a tough test for a fellow, I guess, youthful defender in Morgan Evans. That's a rough challenge between Bernarda and Boyce, who come together. But Adam Bafka, who is a ref who likes to allow play to continue, does draw it to a halt. Bernarda looks to be in some serious pain. You can hear exactly what Esteban Quintas thinks of it on the touchline. This is a red card, he says, for an incident that was deemed as fair bump play on by Adam Bavker in the moment. I don't know if you agree, disagree. I don't know where you place yourself on that one, Oscar.
Well, it was a nasty collision. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think both players were making a very genuine attempt to win the ball, and just Bernardo, I think, was a little bit unlucky with the way that the collision happened and caught the opposition boot around the knee area. Well, hopefully, from a South Melbourne perspective, this isn't too serious of an incident, but you see Bernardo struggling to put any weight, really, on that left leg. And the visitors may well be forced into an early change as a result.
I really hope that this is nothing more serious than perhaps a nasty cork. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had a knee launch its way into your quad, Oscar, but it's not particularly comfortable, particularly when it's Brodie Boyce coming towards you at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So all eyes on Noel Bernardo, a member of the South Bench, just going over to get a status report.
Looks like he's going to try run it off Flocky.
I mean, if there was anyone in NPL Victoria who was going to try and run through and get the beating of a very serious injury, Noel Bernardo would be, I reckon, a short price favourite. And he is back on the field as Lampard launches it forward. As far as Emlyn Wellsmore, though, the Cannons have their opponents locked into their defensive area at the moment as Adis, another right-footed cross into the area, but that one, I set him up for that, didn't I? That was the commentator's curse in its most pure and obvious form.
And Bernardo, you see, he still doesn't look particularly comfortable, as you'd expect, really. So we'll see if over the next couple of minutes the pain settles down so that he's able to continue on in this game. It'd be a big loss for South if he weren't.
Absolutely. Kind of player you'd have to drag kicking and screaming off in a game like this if he thinks there's even a chance of being able to play on. Well contested by Brodie Boyce. Big assignment for him, trying to keep Harrison Sawyer, NPL's leading goal scorer, quiet. 7 already for the season, if you can believe it. Another from the penalty spot against Altona last week as a nice idea in behind for Bernardo, who is slowly but surely coming back to full throttle.
Well, like you alluded to, one of the subplots in this game, in the golden boot race.
The shootout.
The two leaders going head-to-head, Harry Sawyer and Alex Salmon. 7-5 as we stand. Big opportunity for either Sawyer to extend his lead or Salmon to close the gap.
It really is. Scored a great many goals in NPL Victoria, Harrison Sawyer, but Oakleigh, not one of the teams he has done so against, though, in the league just yet. I wonder if this might be his best chance to change it. Archibald takes the ball on the turn. Sinclair able to knock it down, and back to Nick Feely. Great to see Nick Feely getting a sustained period of starts in football. He's had his real troubles with injury ever since that elimination final in 2022 against Heidelberg at this ground. And on that subject, unfortunately, Noel Bernardo is back on the deck here. I think he's tried his best. I just think, Oscar, his race might be run.
Yeah, it was a really valiant effort from Noel Bernardo, and you characterised it fairly, Lockie, to say that it would take absolutely everything to force him out of this game. And he's put his full heart into the last few minutes, trying to get his leg right, but I think just accepting now that it won't be the case. So we'll look to see who South turn to in his place.
I thought I saw Emil Payos potentially getting a talking to, Oscar. Your eyes are slightly younger than mine.
You're not wrong.
And yet you don't answer the question.
Emil Payos would be the most logical replacement, is my answer to that question.
And sweet relief for my fears, because that is indeed Emil Payos, who would have been a little bit disappointed, I can only imagine, to have not been able to start in such a high-quality fixture such as this, but will not have to wait as long as he might have anticipated to make his impact. And unfortunately, it's come at a sad cost for Noel Bernarda, who facial expression said it all as he made his way off the touchline. Strained, pained, disappointed. So a slight hiccup for South, but certainly, Oscar, as both of these sides do this season, have no shortage of quality to turn to. And could we see an instant impact from Payos? He's pushed it wide to Sawyer. It's not always where he wants to be, the big man. And back to Barcia. First time cross, a teasing one. Archibald, and now Lampard on the volley. Sends it in to the trees. Doesn't score many, Jordan Lampard, but already has one for the season. That's ahead of his own expectations, I would imagine. So why not take a bit of attacking license?
Yeah, the confidence from 3 or 4 weeks ago still hasn't worn off for Jordan Lampard. That one will sustain him for the majority of the season, you'd think, based on that attempt. But no, as much as it is a shame to see Bernarda forced off so early, I think exciting that Emil Payos is getting a crack for the majority of this game. He's a player who we've seen a little bit in and out this season, and he's had moments where he's looked really impressive and arguably makes South Melbourne a better team with the ball. He's got some real drive and ambition in possession. Now though, it's South who are having to respond to Oakleigh as they look to build up from the back half. Seeing Kupele and McGill. That's a bit of a loose touch from Sinclair. He'll get away with it. Well, for the sake of the game, perhaps that Bernarda injury finally bringing the tempo and the intensity just down a notch. We see Waring play a nice ball into McGill, former Thunder man. Important intervention from Jankovic. And now Mikola beats Wellsmore. Has a couple for company and tried to play the cross, but Boyce got his body in the way. And really for Max Mikola, that's all part of the plan.
I feel like that passage, though, Oscar, just tells you how tight the margins will be in this game. Even when you do something of supreme quality like that feint from Mikola, it's not enough to get the full beating of your defender.
There were 3 Oakleigh players next to him in a flash. We see a different approach taken this time as Lampard is the recipient of a shorter throw. Important intervention from Ollie Kupele.
It was the trick play. It was the fake.
I think I've hardly ever seen Max Mikola do the short throw from that position, Lockie.
He has really earned a reputation for that. I mean, he is talented in many other ways as a footballer, Max Mikola. Did speak to him earlier this week, and he did say that in pre-season, when he first signed here at South Melbourne, that, you know, Esteban Quintas obviously signed him because he's a good player, but partially because of that knowledge of his throwing ability. And he actively told Max in the first pre-season game, don't do the throws. I don't want anyone to know that you can do this. It's pretty much an open secret at this point, but it's effective. The South continue to press their case. Brought down really nicely by Sawyer. It's Payos. It's a good save by Nick Feely. Oakleigh clear the danger. And Payos whiskers away from a swift impact off the bench. Well, there we go. Is that the chance that pops the cork on this game? Payos. Oh, a good intervention, a crucial intervention from Wellsmore. And now Guest can turn and run. And pockets of space just opening up now, potentially. But Marko Jankovic, over 150 games of top flight experience to his name. Got that one all the way. Beat up 150 in the Greek derby. Lampard has given one to Chase.
Well, look, we're just seeing moments of supreme quality after supreme quality. I mean, South Melbourne, that last attacking move, or the last couple have looked pretty good. But whether it was the save from Nick Feely or the interception from Emlyn Wellsmore, Oakleigh have just been able to match them at each step. And it's not easy to do. Oakleigh have made themselves look more comfortable than I think most teams would, because South are really throwing a lot at them, or have been over the last couple of minutes.
Mikola again. The expectant chance, and this time it is indirect, and it's flicked on at the near post. Brennan strikes it. It's a bit of an ugly one. Bounces across the face of the penalty box. And maybe Brennan can have another bite at the cherry. Driven in low, whisked away by the Oakleigh back line. It was Pierce Waring that time. Adis, fast feet from the winger. Flips out nicely by Morgan Evans. 24 minutes have flown by here at Jack Edwards. The opening goal awaits. The counter press there from Oakleigh was swift. Always been very good at doing that under Chris Taylor. If they do lose the ball, totally committed to winning it back as quick as humanly possible.
Bit of a baptism of fire for Connor Hampson back into the starting lineup. He's been kept busy in the first 24 minutes of this game.
Waring has swapped over to the left-hand side now. And it's not even his natural, or I guess natural position in terms of what we've become accustomed to him doing in NPL Victoria in the centre of defence. Being makeshift is bad enough. When you're being makeshift against the best scorer in the comp, it could certainly make for a tough night. Waring. A little bit of panic emerges for him, and he gets the eyes up. Pierce Waring on the follow-up. It's knocked over by Munib Anis. Oh, Pierce Waring, you could see what was coming from a mile away. Harvey Lopez was equal to it, and Munib Anis, we've been singing his praises for his start to life at Jack Edwards, but he really should have done a little bit better with that opportunity.
And he absolutely fizzed the strike. Like, you saw how difficult it was for Harvey Lopez, even though, as you say, we knew what was coming, but it was still incredibly difficult to stop. Just looked like it was doing all sorts of things in the air. But for now, South Melbourne escape. See the long ball played over the top. And Wellsmore deemed to have fouled Mikola. Well, with the way that both defences have managed to withstand everything that the opposition's thrown at them, you start to wonder whether this is the sort of game that will be decided by just one moment, one mistake, or a moment of particularly special magic. Advantage called by Adam Bavkar, which will allow Munavadis to continue the run. Kingsley Sinclair on the end of that foul, which the referee acknowledged. Just taking a pause as Sinclair gets himself back to his feet to head on over to the touchline and take the throw. Salmon's the recipient. Adis can quite skip past his opponent. Well, Hampson had a pretty firm grasp on Harry Sawyer in that exchange. You hear some complaints from the South Melbourne dugout. Hampson using his experience to get away with that one. Guest wastes no time with the restart. Mikla again getting back to support, and Yankovic, I think everyone else in the ground was a little bit more nervous than he was doing that.
Do you wonder why, Oscar? Peace Waring has just had a fairly good chance from range. A sider, mind you, cutting in from the left-hand side and shooting with his preferred right. And he's immediately been swapped back to the right wing position where he started. What do you make of that?
You wonder whether it's a predetermined approach of between which minutes, which winger is on which side. I'm not sure, Lockie, but I agree. It doesn't make a lot of sense when probably Oakleigh's best chance of the game has come from Peace Waring cutting in from the left.
I mean, not to take away from our tactical analysis, but I'm sure Chris Taylor knows a bit more about what to do with his wingers than we, but I just thought that was interesting that he immediately was back on that right-hand side after the shot. Maybe, I don't know, was he told not to cut inside and shoot from the left?
CT was furious with that last attempt. You can't believe he did it.
Good play from South Melbourne. Sawyer scrapping for it, but eventually, not for the first time in not many minutes, a free kick going against Harrison Sawyer. He doesn't feel as though he had too much to do with. I want to touch back on a point you said about the potential for this game to hinge on a moment of quality or a moment of mistakes. You look over the sort of head-to-head of these two teams. It is a bit of a feast and famine sort of fixture. You either tend to get a high-scoring affair or you get a really slim and narrow scoreline. 43 times, 21 of those, 3 goals or more, 13 1-0s. 13 1-0s. That's a pretty significant portion. I saw what you did there. I'm going to ignore it, but it's a pretty significant portion of games to end in that particular scoreline. It does feel at the moment that we might be potentially looking at 1-0 number 14. Which makes that first goal all the more important as McGilp threads the needle for Guest. The first time cross is into the middle, and getting a touch was Salmon, but touching it wide was Salmon.
Well, look, even if this game does end up being one of those 1-0 scorelines, it wouldn't be for the lack of quality in the game. It'll be just about as good a 1-0 as you could hope for, because both of these teams have come to play tonight. It's been an exhilarating first half hour of football. See the flick-on header from Sawyer. That one goes straight into the feet of Nick Feely. You were making the point not too long ago, Lucky, about the benefits of having a more regular player back in goal for Oakleigh. It was probably one of their most obvious weaknesses last season, was the way that goalkeeper position was chopped and changed quite often, not due to any fault of the Cannons. As we see Adis once again taking on Morgan Evans. In the end, he's forced into retreat. Cross sent in by Sinclair, but nicely headed away by Marko Yankovic. So again, given plenty to do, and you see a little bit of a frustrated expression towards his teammate. This is Hampson. Showing for the ball is Salmon. Again, Morgan Evans just in time gets his body in the right position. He's dealt well with Muna Beidous, considering especially how well Ada started in this game, Lockie. Switch of play, hoping for Mikula, but Wellsmore wins out on this occasion. Now Waring. Guest leaves it for Kubalay. Wellsmore goes the low cross. And now Payos will take it the other way. Doesn't get far as McGill gets his body in the way. And so another phase of play comes and goes. Oakleigh looking dangerous, but South up to the task.
You really don't get a lot of time in this fixture, do you? You see how quickly a player, as soon as they, whether it's by instruction or by sort of knowledge of what the other team is going to try to do, you see any time a player makes a turnover, misplaces a pass, they are working their backside off to return to the position that they're meant to be in. It's nearly the perfect ball from Max Mikula. That's an unfortunate bounce. It was absolutely skittled there. Kubalay picks the eyes up. Adis continuing to make the space as it's dropped in behind for the Oakleigh winger, but a little bit too much meat on the pass from Ollie Kubalay.
Like you talk about the lack of time, not just the time in terms of mistakes and being pounced on, but just even these kinds of passages where you just never feel comfortable. You couldn't think as a player because someone's hunting you down within seconds every time, and your pass has got to be pinpoint or else you'll create a good opportunity for the opposition.
Not for the usual goals and chaos-based reasons that we come to expect of NPL Victoria. This is a really interesting game. There's 33, nearly 34 minutes have ticked by. Definitely a tactical battle. As Lampard chests and controls and knocks it down for Payos, who, well, we talk about the lack of time and he get on the ball. He certainly found that fact on that occasion as Waring drives one in across the face of the box. It sits for McGill. And the South defence froze in expectation of a net ripple that, luckily for them, never arrived from Cam McGill. But Jack Edwards fell silent for a moment there. I thought from that angle, McGill had made it 1-0.
Well, it's certainly as close as either team have come, and really what we were talking about just before, the one failure to clear the cross from South Melbourne, and Oakleigh just about score as a result. Does not take a lot. You see Sawyer drawing the foul there from Brodie Boyce.
Well, and Payos, a little sort of blind half turn into a marker. A massive chance for Oakleigh within 30 seconds. This is a position of more comfort and familiarity for South, though. They get a nice little set piece to work with as we tick inside the final 10 minutes of the first half.
Mario Barcia standing over it. Chips it inside. Feely was quick off his line and the double fister clear. Now asks his teammates to race down the other end. Nice 1-2 between Sinclair and Guest. And the Cannons will restart from deep. Nice first touch from McGill. Guest in towards Salmon. Salmon's first pass is blocked, as is the second. And a rare loose touch from Joe Guest is almost punished, but as Joe Guest tends to do, he makes it work. Adis. An ambitious attempt, to say the least. That one from coming off the complete wrong part of the boot, Lockie. Well, your first 10 minutes have really set him up to fun.
I swear he's on a one-man mission to make me look silly. Although, if I was going to stick up with my message of the first 10 minutes, yeah, you can say that's a poor shot. I can say that's an inventive outside of the foot switch for the left winger, but you know, we can all come to our own conclusions in football, I suppose.
Yeah, you don't need Munibadis to make you look silly, Lockie.
I think one thing that is maybe giving Oakleigh the edge, perhaps in this first half, and only slightly. It's a very tight game, but that movement through the middle, I feel like the Oakleigh midfield at the moment, particularly Cam McGilp, but Joe Guest, of course, and Ollie Kublai perhaps to a lesser extent at the base, they're just able to beat that one player to free up some space that allows a little bit more to happen further, you know, ahead of the ball. Whereas South, I'm struggling to think of the occasions in this half where a player through the centre has been able to just get round their marker and help things happen further afield.
And as much as, you know, we've sung the praises of Emil Powers and he's a fantastic player, it's tough to ask him to match the contributions of Joe Guest at the other end. And it's really the role that he'd have to be playing, and you wonder how much that early substitution's affected what South have been able to do. No doubt Esteban Quintas had a very specific plan, playing Bernardo Brennan and Mikla in the same front line. Now though, it's the Cannons who will take the corner. Adis gets a head on it. The desperation defending from South gets the ball away. And Boyce races to keep the ball rolling. Once again, wearing an Adis switching flanks, just keeping the South defence constantly guessing. So you see that pass from Kubalay is overhit.
Oscar, will you permit me to do a quick around the grounds update from the other 3 games we've got going on?
I'm all ears, Lockie.
Okay. Well, will you believe this, that the big talking point off field this week has been the coaching change out at Hume City. David Chick stepping in for the departing Cam Watson.
One of the big coaching change talking points throughout the week.
Well, let's save VPL 1 for another time, another debate. Hume City 4-2 up against Melbourne Knights. St Albans with a 2-1 lead against 10 men Manningham, and Green Gully and Dandenong Thunder locked at 1 apiece. But that Hume result is the real standout, because that's nearly full time.
Well, I'm just thinking, if you're Manningham, life comes at you fast, doesn't it? It's been a dramatic turnaround from last week's unbelievable result against Avondale. A result which, of course, did these two teams a big favour. They'll have been very glad to have seen it.
This is NPL Victoria heritage.
And as we approach the final 5 minutes of regulation in this first half, it is another corner from that far side for Oakleigh. It's a decent delivery from Guest. Hampson got ahead on it. Wasn't going to take too long until we saw those two combine. That time, though, couldn't quite keep the attempt down. So South will have the opportunity to reclaim the tempo and build up from the back.
Really interested to see what, if any, tactical tweaks South Melbourne make at the halftime interval. I feel like they could maybe just use a little adjustment or two, but could they flip the script here? It's Brennan across the box for Payos, and Sawyer gets his head to it. Can only head away from goal. It was a difficult angle. He sort of had to stoop his neck down while jumping at the same time. It's tricky when you're the size that he is. I would imagine. But no, that was another example of how quickly, when you make a little mistake in this game, the other team will, and nearly, in that case, can punish. Maybe there's no need for tactical tweaks at all for Esteban Quintas, but Harrison Sawyer will just be hoping for more of that service in the second half.
Well, he's made a career of it, Lockie, but you can just imagine how difficult it is to get your timing right on those headers when you've been largely starved of opportunities, especially relative to what you're used to as Harry Sawyer. See him doing many more of those contests higher up the pitch, competing for the ball.
And back by Archibald. Turning into trouble was Payos, but he's managed to get free of the first marker, but doesn't get the beating of the second. And now Salmon with back to goal. Gets the pace up. Gets on the move. Adis was a little bit too clever. He was caught in the middle, but not intentionally. It stays an Oakleigh ball. Advantage given for a moment, but good refereeing from Adam Bafka. No real opportunity materialising for Oakleigh to do anything with that, and I think they'll be pretty happy, the kind of team that they are, Oakleigh. 27 set-piece goals scored last season to have another this time around.
I do think Adam Bavkar does deserve a shout-out for letting the game flow in this kind of environment with the way that both of these teams are playing. I think he's really enhanced the spectacle.
Indeed. And this is probably beyond shooting range for Joe Guest. He does look to turn provider. He is a light touch referee, Adam Bavkar, which is important to distinguish from a soft touch referee, which would be a very different thing. Kubalay. Sweet. Towards first half stoppage. Looped over the top for Pierce Waring, who plucks it out of the night sky and drives towards the byline, fizzes a ball into the box, but it's into the breadbasket of Javi Lopez. His goal has been troubled, but for that wide chance from Cam McGill, but mostly has been in quite a savable, attainable area for him. Gotta say, Brody Boyce has racked up the clearing headers in this first half. And this is a fair way out from goal, but it looks as though Max Mikkeler is shaping for a long throw.
Yeah, like that last short throw, that was a unicorn of an event. We're not seeing that again anytime soon.
In it comes, missiled in from Mikkeler, flicked on by a few heads, but a free kick in the lead up draws it dead. Been long searching for the answer to the history of Max Mikkeler's long throw, Oscar. As a cricketer growing up, a fast bowler. Apparently that's played some influence, but used to have a training partner as well who was quite good at the long throws, and basically said to his training partner, you know what, I reckon I can do that better than you. Had a crack, and it turns out the answer was yes, and it's just become his sort of thing ever since.
You've now twice referenced a conversation with Max Mikkeler, Lockie, and you still haven't said the thing. You've strayed away from the self-promotion, which I have to admire you for.
Well, nice to, get it every once in a while from you, Oscar. That's good. It's Lazaros Pantelides adds stoppage onto the game. I think it was 2 minutes, Oscar. You can correct me if I'm wrong, and you're not, because you've held up 2 fingers, so perfect. And Mikkeler gets a breakaway. Payos spreads the defence, but Sinclair diving in to thwart the threat.
Well, with just 90 seconds remaining in the half, question becomes, will there be one more clear-cut opportunity at either end? The Cannons are looking to generate one, but McGill's pass is not quite on the same wavelength as his teammates. Not something that you could have said too often tonight. But it will allow Javi Lopez to trudge over and take a few more seconds off the clock. 0-0, Lockie, probably a fair reflection of the game and the way it's been played.
Yeah, I think so. There hasn't been too much in it. As I said earlier, I think Oakleigh have maybe just shaded that battle in midfield, but as the first half's gone on, we've seen South have still got that threat when they do close down the errant moments from Oakleigh. I'm really fascinated to see how the teams emerge in the second 45.
Feely sends the ball up towards his midfield, where Kubelay's touch takes it towards Guest. And now Wellsmore, will this be the final charge forward for either team in this half? It's Wellsmore once again. Plays it to Guest cleverly. Just couldn't quite take control, the number 10 for the Cannons. Now Wellsmore along the deck. Aiders couldn't get there in time, and that is half-time. 0-0 the score at Jack Edwards. A really fascinating contest. Hard-fought, quality everywhere you look. Both teams have come to play, and the game remains finely poised as we head into the second half. 0-0 the score.
Well, it's certainly got that feeling of two undefeated sides, two teams who will be at the top end, Oscar, because the quality of the attacking and midfield play has only on many an occasion been matched by the quality of defending from the opposition side in any given moment. But that hasn't made it a boring or uninteresting clash by any stretch of the imagination. There have been chances. Things could be different, but as it stands, as it has been the case many times in meetings between these two sides, a big fixture that heads to the halftime interval very tight and all square. We'll join you for it on the second half, myself, Lockie Flanagan, and Oscar Rutherford in 15 minutes' time.
I didn't say where it was from. I described it. I went out of my way. I was bending over backwards not to move. Relevant information. It's called research.
Press the door from around the grounds. NPL Victoria.
Yeah, I've got to move my mic a bit further away.
Jump out for you? Or?
No.
Just wait.
NPL 1. Front forward. Kingston City nil. Warren 1.
That's like saying me having come on in. If I reference something that happened on the news,
Alright. You get there, if you're training up off there, tomorrow night, that's just make you get started Sunday morning business. How much?
Oh, well, there's a good one up there. Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah. Not complaining. Not bad.
How you doing, mate?
It's been okay.
Good luck to you.
The booty was in the square.
Yeah. Then I'll give it.
But how would that be possible? They don't even know what. I could have just bumped into him on the street and decided this is actually ridiculous. Even by your standards, this is ridiculous.
Thank you, Miranda. We're not what I thought of. No chance.
I'm sorry, Oscar. I've done as much to promote your podcast than you. Sorry about that.
Yes. We don't think of that stuff until too late.
I'm getting paid for my episodes that haven't even been released yet.
Έκανα να μπορώ 2,5 Βγάζανε το νερό, μετά από λίγο έβρεχε. Βγάζανε το νερό, μετά από λίγο έβρεχε. Βγάζανε το νερό και ήταν πολύ το χώμα και ρίξανε 2 εκατομμύρια μόνο από τσιμένα. Και όταν έγινε σεισμός, πέρυσι πρόπερσι, λίγο τσισμό. I felt it. Να σου δείξω κάτι. Όταν έγινε η θύελα, εδώ, το έχει. Όταν έγινε η θύελα, εδώ.
Πού ήταν το θύελα, τα δελτία,
Όχι ρε, όταν έγινε με το climate, με τον καιρό, το weather, αυτό κράτησε 9 με 10 λεπτά. Όλα αυτά έχουν πέσει όλα τα δέντρα εδώ πέρα πίσω. Κοίταξε εδώ, τι γράφει. Γιατί έκανα πάνω στον καιρό και το σταμάτησα. Στο γράφει κάτι. Δεν πρέπει. That's my picture. Έβαλε το χέρι με πάνω στο θέμα του Σάιδο. Μόνο που το έκανα pick up, λέω it's not normal. Και ήρθε και 9 λεπτά κράτησε. Και μετά σταμάτησε, βγήκε ο ήλιος. Τέωα. I know it. Ξέρω που μπορώ να φράσω. Δεν έχει να κάνει χρήματα. Δεν έχει.
Πνεύματα δεν άκουσα τίποτα για τα πνεύματα.
Τώρα περίμενα θα δουλέψω τα πνεύματα.
Ναι, αλλά ο Βαλεντίνο είναι έτσι, τώρα θα πάλι μέσα, θα σε πάρουμε μετά. Δεν όλοι.
Θα το βάλουμε το Βαλεντίνο.
Δεν θέλουμε να το βάλουμε.
Θα το βάλουμε το Βαλεντίνο.
Να μην κάνει καλή φασαρία, να βάλει βόλτα.
Σταθεί. Δεν γίνεται ρε παιδιά.
Not that I have any problems with Alex. Big fan of yourself. I've only worked with him once, but quite enjoyed it. I remember you guys had upfield for a while.
Welcome back to Jack Edwards Reserve in Oakleigh for the second half of what is a delicately, tantalisingly even, poised game between the home side Oakleigh Cannons and the table-topping undefeated South Melbourne. A game that does not yet have a goal to bring to us, but it has certainly brought a lot in other ways. Plenty of technical, tactical and physical quality out there on display from both sides, who have been well matched inside the opening 45. But as we return to the scene of the crime, Jack Edwards for the second 45, Lockie Flanagan and Oscar Rutherford with you. It remains, Oscar, goalless. The opening goal awaits us here at Jack Edwards Reserve. If you were placing a bet after 45 minutes, is there a horse between these two that you're backing?
Well, look, I think Oakleigh were the slightly better team in that first half. I think that particularly as the half went towards its end, South struggled a bit to get out of their own back half of play, and Oakleigh had pinned them back for quite a while. So the challenge for South is whether they can get a bit closer back to where we started in the game and where both teams were really going forward with great regularity. But so in that sense, I think that Oakleigh have looked stronger, but Esteban Quintas has had a half time to chat to his team and maybe reevaluate how they're approaching this tactically.
It was a delicate knockdown from Salmon for Joe Guest. And now Adis can turn and charge at Morgan Evans, who recovered ever so well to come in with a sliding challenge for which there was a high margin for error. And you are right, Oscar, that Oakleigh have arguably had the slide advantage in certain areas of the pitch in the first half, but there's no doubt as well that South were a far sterner test than what Oakleigh have been used to here at Jack Edwards so far this season. Scored 3 goals in the first half of each of their last 3 games here, if you count the cancelled half against Altona. They've been able to breach Javi Lopez's goal once in the first 45. They do love playing here. They have only lost once in 18 games here. That was against South, though. And Oakleigh looking to push the pace as we start the second 45. Salmon scoops it in the Wellsmore direction. I don't know how Harrison Sawyer managed to win that in the air with his back to the ball, but he was not able to do so without giving away a foul. He's racked up a couple now. The Oakleigh players protesting that perhaps there was a bit of a mid-air, I'm not sure what the official terminology for it. I'm sure shove and whack isn't it, but that's the best way I can describe it.
Sounds like rule 4.2 of the referee's handbook. Shove and whack.
I don't think the linesman nor Adam Bavka quite agreeing with that assessment from the Oakleigh 11. Of course, the linos tonight, Yanni Miletus and Didac Lee.
Lunavators once again being asked to chase the ball in behind the South defence. I must say Morgan Evans has been very impressive tonight. The way that he's kept tabs on both Adis and Pierce Waring when the wingers have switched sides. Ball played across there by Waring. It was dangerous, it's just no one was there waiting for it. And now Lampard charges in the opposite direction, looks cross-field towards Payos. It's a risky backheader from Sinclair. You saw Sawyer very nearly getting there ahead of Nick Feely. Over the goalkeeper there just in time. It's a lovely first touch from the new Adis. Skips through on the outside, tees up the cross. That one finds its way through to Waring. Waring goes with the left. And in the end, Lampard sends it a long way back.
It's interesting, Oscar, that Oakleigh have had two really venomous, inviting crosses into the penalty area, and on both occasions, Alex Salmon has, curiously, as the number 9, been nowhere near them. He's a fantastic goal scorer in NPL Victoria, but doesn't love playing South Melbourne necessarily. Just the one win across his time at Oakleigh and Green Gully in 9 meetings, only 1 goal, and that was in his first game against South. So 8 without reply against the visitors. Don't get a chance here though, as a free kick presents for Oakleigh, and Emil Payos, the early first half substitute for the injured Noel Bernarda, goes into the book. I say he struggled scoring against South Melbourne, but scoring has not been a struggle for Alex Salmon up to this point this season. So he got on the score sheet last week. In doing so, jumped up to 6th in the all-time NPL scorers list, ahead of Davey Van Skip. His former teammate Wade Decker, the player ahead of him to beat in 5th position. Look to get his name on the score sheet here as Joe Guest sizes up the delivery, and it's well shaped, and it's flicked on, and it's flicked wide by Hampson, who was offside anyway, so would have been a moot point had the back of the net bulged. But what did you coin it before in the first half, Oscar? The Curzon Ashton connection nearly came up trumps.
I think we've seen the real benefit that Connor Hampson provides at both ends of the pitch, having him back in the team for CT. Really has taken to this competition like a duck to water. And tonight he's been asked to do a lot. This is a chance now for Adis. Goes on the outside and opts to go direct. Never likely from such a tight angle though, as Javi Lopez happy to watch it sail over his crossbar.
So when Alex Salmon is not in the middle of the penalty box, the crosses come in. But when he is in a great position in the middle of the box, that's when the shot happens. It's a funny game of football sometimes.
Garcia plays it through towards Andrew Brennan. Some calls for a handball on Sinclair. Sawyer now plays across first time. Mikola. Still going Mikola. Gets the shot away eventually. Well, he gave himself some space from Wellsmore. And then it was a bullet of a shot, really. Not much movement at all in the air, and it was always looking like it was heading wide, but South Melbourne just reminding Oakleigh of the threat they possess.
He just never got the curl, but promising sign nonetheless, though, not just for South, but for Max Mikola specifically, that he can sort of find those openings, the breakaway. It's really the first time we've heard those visiting South Melbourne fans spring up into some sort of chant and cheer. There's a good crowd here, though, at Jack Edwards. I mean, it always is when these two sides play, but the undefeated records, the extra carrot, as you wouldn't believe it. Another short throw from Max Mikola, and this one was a straight turnover to the Oakleigh defence. South fight tooth and nail to win it back, though, and they do through Lampard. Mikola is forward for a cutout by the Oakleigh backline.
I wonder if this is a scheme from Esteban Quintas and directed at those who criticise the reliance on the long throw, saying, look what happens when we go short. What would be the point in that? See how much more effective we are when we go direct.
This time there's no bait and switch, it is indirect, it's in the Sawyer direction, and it's hooked clear by Ollie Kurbele, so the Cannons can bring their lines forward. South Melbourne just having a little spell. in the last few minutes. Jack Edwards. Is this the final fixture in a flurry of Friday night games in NPL Victoria, of which the headline result so far reads Hume City 5, Melbourne Knights 2. I can't quite believe I'm saying that out loud, but here we are. That's the NPL for you. Morgan Evans showing composure beyond his years. Payos hoping to do the same as he checks his way inside and slips it to Archibald. Garcia. Patient build-up from South. Payos tried to hook it inside for Max Mikola, but the corner, not the worst result for Esteban Quintas' side, as he's had maybe one light in the towers go out here at Jack Edwards. They have recently been, my understanding, reinstalled here after the storms that hit the area a few weeks back. That's why we had a couple of games played on the Sunday afternoon, but all looks to be okay for the moment. We will keep an eye on it as the visitors prepare a corner through Mikola. One arm aloft. A furious in-swinger at the back post. Nodded across goal. Garcia strikes on the half volley. And the foot race is on, and it had to be perfect from Andy Brennan because Minimatis is a pacey customer.
Like, it's been the best 5-minute spell we've seen from South for a while. We see Max Mikola wrestling past Kingsley Sinclair, and much to the dismay of the South fans, a foul is called. But South, for the first time in a long time, getting a few repeat chances. Really felt it was something that they needed to do sooner rather than later, with Oakleigh peppering their goal to start the second 45. And it was always a question of what was going to give when these two teams meet. When you look at their records this season, a couple of the highest scoring teams, but also the best defensive teams as well. And so far it's defences which are winning out.
It's usually you get the unstoppable force against the immovable object, but these two teams, they seem to both be simultaneously unstoppable forces and immovable objects. The only thing,
two of those makes.
Well, the only object that seems to be immovable at the moment is the scoreline.
3 out of 5 for that one.
I'll take it.
Of course, the Cannons in their completed home games this season have managed 10 goals already, so going at an average of over 3 goals per game at Jack Edwards. This tells you everything you need to know about just how threatening Chris Taylor's team can be. Interesting, Lucky, was flicking back through the years, not the first time in the NPL era that the Cannons have managed 10 goals or more in their first 3 home games of the season. We'll hold that thought as Oakleigh do make their way forward. Joe Guest, I think, stepping on the ball. And that will allow South the opportunity to spring forward. This is Payos. And Garcia's in support. South off the more conservative approach. Brennan placed the cross towards Sawyer. And the big number 9, he got a boot on it. It was a teasing delivery from Andy Brennan. Just couldn't steer it on target with the South Melbourne number 9, but that's as good a chance as we've had all half, Lockie.
And it was a cross that deserved a reward from Andy Brennan. What a ball that was in the direction of 6'5" Harrison Sawyer. Unfortunately, the big number 9, who usually when he gets into those sort of positions, the end result is the ball in the back of the net, but just wasn't able to oblige that time. Adis, his inventive flick comes to naught. It's a little bit like you said in the first half, Oscar, when the chances come few and far between, it's tricky for the striker to just sort of stay warm. And maybe we saw that problem rear its head for South's number 9. Plenty of things that could change the equation, though, in this game. It has been a good start for South in the second 45, but subs are plenty available. South have, of course, already used one, bringing on Emil Payos. It's a great ball through the lines for McGilp, and now Alex Salmon let fly, but it was a bit of a P-roller. Harvey Lopez able to just guide it into his arms. Not for the first time, Oscar, when Harvey Lopez, the Spaniard, is called into action. The two-time goalkeeper of the year hasn't actually had to do that much work. Another test here, perhaps. Waring, his touch was heavy. Sinclair, nice little knockdown for Kubalay. Adis, delicate passing from the cannons, and unfortunately for Alex Salmon, Joe Guest, or unfortunately for Joe Guest, rather, Alex Salmon didn't quite pick up the idea that Joe Guest had in mind. Certainly feel as though this game is just opening up a little bit now, though. Nicola hits the turf, wave of the arm from Adam Bafka. Calm flick from Marko Jankovic. What a luxury it is for South to have two experienced central defenders like him and Marshall at the back. McGill up the line for Waring, who had double coverage. And the South defence come up with the stoppage. Evans was fouled in the process of trying to get the ball upfield, so a nice little pressure reliever for the visitors. It's such a colossal central defensive pairing. That of Marko Jankovic and reigning gold medalist, shock gold medalist, some might have said at the time, Jake Marshall, nearly 270 odd top flight appearances between the two. Oakleigh subs have been sent to warm up. Adis knocks it into space, is chasing it down, but couldn't get the beating of Marshall. Just as we thought, Oscar, that South had perhaps taken a grip on this game. Oakleigh trying to bite back.
I think it's fair what you said, Lockie, that the game has started to open up over the last 5 or 10 minutes. Both teams starting to play a bit more in search of the win rather than just settling for a point. As a win at this stage for either team would give them a huge advantage early in the season in that race for top spot, with Avondale suffering that defeat last time out.
Cuando le dice una palabra y le dice, bueno, ¿lo puedes usar en una oración? Le dice, es tipo un cargo en África, ¿ok?
As we move into the 64th minute of action with neither goal yet breached. No mean feat taking on the Cannons at home. Just to finish that point from before, Lockie, it was back in 2014, the first year of NPL football.
I'm so sorry, I forgot to ask.
I was waiting for you to do so, but I figured I'd just shoehorn it in anyway, because it's worth saying that in 2014, Oakleigh did score 14 goals in their first 3 home games of the season. hit Green Gully and Dandy Thunder for 6, combined with the 2-1 win over Heidelberg. So they've got a storied history of extensive goal scoring here at Jack Edwards do the Cannons, as we see a really interesting challenge flying in. Cam McGilp was the player who caught Mikola late. Just the way that he left the ground, I think, is what attracted such attention from the players and the South Melbourne dugout. The Oakleigh midfielder will escape with just a yellow card there, Lockie, but you can understand that just for a moment you wondered that one could have been a lot worse than it might have ended up being, although Max Mikola does look a little worse for wear.
Well, certainly Adam Bafkar took his time to think about it, and it did make you wonder whether or not that hesitation was him asking the question of, is this a red or is it not? Those fears certainly grew if you're of an Oakleigh persuasion, as his hand went sort of towards the back pocket, but no, it's Cam McGilp, who is no stranger to a yellow card, picks up another.
Max Mikola just getting back to his feet, which is a good sign. It doesn't look as if it's something that will force him out of the game.
No, and they've already lost one of their attacking sparks. South Melbourne in the first half to injury. It would be a cruel blow to lose a second, particularly Queenslander Max Mikola in season number 3 at South Melbourne. Payos, inventive balls, Sawyer, chests, controls, and gets it through to Brennan, who just couldn't make anything of it, but a few deflections were handy. They helped, and they get a corner for South Melbourne. And Kingsley Sinclair was apoplectic that is the end result, but it doesn't really change the mind of the referees.
Well, I think Nick Feely blew his team's cover by the way he was so desperate to avoid it going behind. It made the decision of maybe a bit more straightforward for the officials.
And so Max Mikola, who was in a heap on the deck seconds ago, is on corner duty once more. Another back post delivery, this time Oakleigh the first head. Barcia, a speculator. And Hampson well out of danger. And you can hear the call on the effects mic, the substitution that has loomed large over this game. Looks as though it's going to be coming to fruition here. Former South junior Stefan Valentini, who has had his fair share of feisty battles with South Melbourne in the senior setups as both an Oakleigh Cannon and an Avondale player, is going to come on. But what kind of game will he be coming on to? Because driving forward is Brennan. Across the box is Payos. And he just couldn't get his feet sorted. I can't believe that's come to nothing for South.
What a ball once again from Andy Brennan. This half he's really raised his game. I think Emil Payos just got his feet tangled up beneath him. He couldn't get a clean shot away. It's a superb setup, and the Cannons will be counting themselves lucky not to be 1-0 down as they do prepare to make that change you were mentioning. Steph Valentini about to come on for Oakleigh.
Kubalay clips in the centre circle. Harry Sawyer, who has had a handful of fouls in this game, is going to earn himself a ticket as well. And that might give the chance for Stefan Valentini to make his way onto the field. As we mentioned, no stranger to taking on South Melbourne in years gone by, be it in Oakleigh or Avondale colours. Has only scored twice against them though, by my count. And one of those was in a 4-0 win for Avondale in the Australia Cup. Certainly be hoping to alter that statistic tonight. I wonder though who he is going to replace.
Just to say, like you mentioned, the lack of affection between Stefan Valentini and the South fans, as we see this long-range attempt come in, and that will allow the change to be made. But Valentini, as he was called across from the warming-up subs, was copping some abuse from over the fence, and you just saw a grin come up on his face as he heard it.
It is Pierce Waring, whose day comes to an end. He won't get himself a third NPL Victoria goal against South Melbourne, but Stefan Valentini will be hoping that he can replace him and achieve exactly the same feat that has just swapped his, or passed his teammate by. And certainly you can expect the South crowd to raise their volume when Stefan Valentini's on the ball. It's definitely a player that drives interest from both fans and opposition spectators alike, which is usually a surefire indication that you're a pretty good player.
Just as we see Pierce Waring make his way off, Lockie, I'm curious to get your thoughts on how Pierce has gone in this somewhat different role that he's taken on at Oakleigh in a wider position. It was, of course, one of the big questions coming into the season, how Oakleigh were going to make their front line work with so much star power. And we know that his role extends beyond goals, particularly now. Just the one to his name so far.
And I'll answer that question in a second as Salmon is on the drive, blocked by a Marshall leg in the middle. Sorry, Oscar. I think it's a very good question, though. I mean, it's not... Is it a big change from the position and role last year where he was the line leader at Green Gully? Yes. Is it a totally unfamiliar position? Not exactly. He did spend time on the wing at Bentley and have some success there, albeit with, I think, a nasty hamstring injury from memory. But it's a tricky one. You don't get a lot of time to prove that you are starting, I don't think starting quality, but, you know, in starting form in this team when you've got Stefan Valentini on the bench. When you have players who are still coming back to full fitness, like an Asad Kasumovic, for example, who is a highly touted youngster from Adelaide, the margins are very thin. The margins are very thin, and I don't know, if Steph Valentini, you know, has a good 20-minute burst here and really impresses, let's not forget he was starting to begin the season, maybe that makes it quite difficult for Pierce Waring, because he had his moments, he had his flashes here, but I don't know, I just feel like maybe he looked more suited in the role that he was playing last season for Gully than perhaps the one he's playing this, but it's still early doors. Niv Adis is on the turf now, and the Cards they were stayed in the first half, but it's a bit more of an Oprah Winfrey type scenario in the second half. Everyone's getting a yellow, and Marko Jankovic is the latest.
Well, make no mistake, Marko Jankovic knew precisely what he was doing there. He was the last line of defence, and I think it was probably making a pretty safe bet that he wasn't about to catch Niv Adis if he got past him.
I think that would be a pretty safe bet for most people in NPL Victoria, I dare say. Guest delivery is in the Adis direction. It bounces through the South defensive line, and the Cannons can pick up the pieces at the back stick. Into the final 20 minutes of Jack Edwards. Every kick, every chance becomes oh so important. The result that awaits either side starts to get more real. Chipped in behind, looking for Salmon, but they've really done their job on him tonight so far. The South Melbourne central defensive duo of Jake Marshall and Marko Jankovic. I think both strikers, by and large, have actually found the going pretty tough tonight.
No, it's a fair observation. I think the Alex Salmon one's particularly interesting because we've seen the ball in and around that area quite often. And we are once more, as Salmon's here on the ball. Plays it back to Valentini. Shot narrowly across goal. And Javi Lopez scrambling for just a moment. Yeah, it's been largely those kinds of situations that Alex Salmon's been limited to in his involvement. Steph Valentini reminding us very quickly of his capacity off the bench.
How many chances have we had now in this game as well where there's been either a cross or a shot that has just whizzed its way past the goal face and just needs a touch, and either that touch, the player to provide it isn't there, or the touch, as was the case for Emil Payos earlier, just doesn't materialise. It really amps up the tension and the tightness of the game.
See Salmon the target for the long throw sent up by Sinclair. Evans, though, will take this one for South. Slightly over the head of Sawyer, who clashes with Kubalay as they both go for the ball. And Oakleigh will get a bit of a reprieve as Wellsmore's deemed to have been fouled. Nice touch from Valentini to McGilp, and our space on the right-hand side. Crossing is a good one. Valentini got ahead on it. It was really difficult, that one, to crane his neck around the ball and get it on target.
Actually, not dissimilar to that first half chance for Harrison Sawyer, where it was a good cross but a little bit lower than perhaps Sawyer would have liked, and he had to sort of crane his neck to make it a reasonable chance on goal, or off goal, as was the case.
It really was the pace on the ball that made it so dangerous, and like you say, just the height not quite favourable, and if Harry Sawyer struggles with it, then it's understandable that Stephen Valentini might too.
But just as an aside to that chance, that I've been here to Jack Edwards plenty of times, but it doesn't matter how many times I turn up and watch Oakleigh. The quality of their crossing and their set-piece deliveries is just, for my money, unrivaled in this competition. The amount of balls that they are able to just put on a platter, even if it doesn't end in a goal or a really threatening chance, you would love to be a striker in this team with some of the deliveries that come in as Guest lines up from distance, and unorthodox sort of bat away from Harvey Lopez that spills into the lap of Valentini. And Wellsmore, nearly catches out Harvey Lopez. And he did get a touch. I thought it might have been onto the roof of the net, but no, the Spaniard makes the intervention, and that one was a lot more sort of calculated and by the book than we saw in that first half, or sorry, earlier shot from Joe Guest. I've never really seen anything like that, to be honest with you, Oscar. It was volleyball-esque. In comes the corner from Oakleigh. Adis and Valentini get up at the back post, but neither can provide a telling touch. The reason being that a South head was last to the football. So another corner for the Cannons.
That save from Harvey Lopez a couple of moments ago, like, it might not have been as effective as a regulation approach, although I'll tell you what, I'm just as impressed by it because he caught it flush with the fist. It was a really solid contact.
Still under pressure though. Guest. Outswing this time. Adis rises. And Sawyer just lets that run harmlessly out for a goal kick. Still getting over that one though from Harvey Lopez. Seriously. We had Ollie Kubalay sort of play the perfect pass off his knee in the first 45, and I thought that was impressive until Harvey Lopez brought out the... Is that a dig? I think? I'm not sure. Not much of a volleyball player, so you'll have to correct me on the official terminology.
Payos gives chase. It's nicely shielded by Sinclair, so it will roll out for a Nick Feely goal kick. And it's safe to say that volleyball terminology is outside either of our scopes of expertise. The shot wasn't much of a floater, and that's about as much as I've got for you.
Right, let's stop it there.
This is Adis. Yet again, just the South Melbourne numbers converge whenever Invaders finds himself in space on the wing. And we'll once again return to the corner situation for the Cannons. Guest, the outswinger. Better comes in. Follow-up attempt. Salmon got something on that one. And in the end, we'll just get a repeat with another corner. Guest with yet another attempt. It's in a similar area, this one. It's closer to finding a clean header for a teammate, but referee Adam Babkar's picked out a foul. And that will give us an opportunity to look to the substitutes bench once more. And there will be Bolton, who makes his way onto the pitch. He'll replace Andy Brennan. Brennan, who I think had a stronger second half. Some of those crosses that he sent in were mighty impressive and created some cutthroat opportunities. It's the 21-year-old Tong, who Esteban Quintas turns to in search perhaps of an unlikely winner. This is Guest, attempting to slide it through, but Evans read it first. Goes direct towards Sawyer. Controlled it with the chest, although Adam Babkar says it was with the arm instead. It's difficult to see from this angle, Lockie. The South fans, I think it's safe to say, weren't impressed with the call.
There's a lot of talk about, you know, contrast of styles sometimes when South play certain teams. I tell you, you will not get a bigger contrast of style than the touchline behaviours we've seen tonight. As Esteban Quintas goes into the book, he is always super animated, always up and about, and we love him for it. But Chris Taylor, I'm not sure he's moved in the entire 90, which is very much his style. Of course, the former South Melbourne head coach, a championship winner with South Melbourne multiple times, I guess a legend in many respects, but definitely the predecessor, a different operator than the current South head coach, that is for sure.
Do you think, Lockie, if you were a player, you'd rather have a coach who you always knew what they were thinking because they were always telling you, or someone who you're just never sure because they just look in silence at you and you're always thinking, I wonder what they're thinking?
Personally prefer to know where I stand rather than leave it in the grey area. I mean, Chris Taylor could be thinking anything right now. If I had to, you know, make a bet, I might say that, you know, gee, wouldn't mind a goal here for Oakleigh would be one such thought. So we are into the final 10 here at Jack Edwards Reserve. A 0-0 draw. Well, it maintains the undefeated start to the season for both sides, but doesn't do a great deal more than that. It'll keep them more or less where they are. But you want to win these games. You want to win these games, even if it is early in the season.
Do you think, Lockie, that South would probably be more content with the point, considering just how difficult it is to play at Jack Edwards, and South know that as well as any team? The chance still very much remains alive for either team to snag all 3 points late in this game. See Guest and Wellsmore combining. Now McGill looks to direct it towards the other flank. This is Adis. Uses the support of Sinclair. Goes direct with the cross, and Javi Lopez had to come and get a vital touch to direct it away from Steph Valentini. You think, Lockie, both teams may be getting ready for one final surge, one last attempt to find the breakthrough. Right now it's the Cannons who have their opponents pinned back in their own half. Every South player on this side of the halfway line. Kubele uses Sinclair. Crosses with the left, a little bit too much on it. The clearance isn't convincing. Adis, though, wasn't able to react in time. Still, though, the Cannons persist. Jankovic sends it clear. Sawyer couldn't control it. And in the end, Oakleigh forced all the way back to their goalkeeper, Nick Feely. Call from Esvan Quintas' flick. And now Guest. Plays it cleverly towards Adis, who gets there in time. It's a vital slide from Jake Marshall. After a perfectly weighted through ball was played by Joe Guest. Marshall anticipating that Adis would hit it first time. It was just about the only choice. For the third or fourth time this half, Joe Guest standing over a corner on this side. The outswinging ball, once again, the header comes in. And South were comfortable with the shot coming from there, far enough away from the goal. And Hampson was always going to struggle to test Javi Lopez from that position.
You couldn't fault his effort, though. They always attack every loose ball with such intensity, ferocity, Oakleigh. That's why you can never really rest on your laurels against them, because they just go hell for leather at every available opening. I think Manib Adis was a pretty good example of that on the left-hand side. Thought for a second that Morgan Evans had that ball in behind from Joe Guest covered, but Adis, who has been running at his marker for 85 minutes at the time, was totally untroubled. He was arguably able to find another gear just at the moment he needed it. And as I say that, he's swapped wings, and Stefan Valentini has taken up a position on the left-hand side. Sinclair stood up in the box, but catching practice for Javi Lopez. Flicked on by Sawyer, but no one willing to crumb it out of the air. Boltong, unfortunately, was just on the wrong side. Archibald will take it. He will take it. A throw for South Melbourne. We haven't had any major stoppages in this second half, so you do start to think about how many stoppage time minutes Lazaros Pantelidis will add on to the game. Can't imagine it'll be a massive amount, though. And Hampson. Oh, the break of the ball off the grass there was just perfect for Nick Feely. There are a few sort of umming and ahhing as to whether or not that might be a careless corner conceded by Oakleigh, but it was a nice little right to left break there for Nick Feely. Hampson. In the closing stages of a gripping but goalless encounter at Jack Edwards. Good challenge by Barcia, but he showed too much the ball to Adis. But every time you get the beating of one South player, there's a second there to pick up the pieces. And that time it was Jordan Lampard who got a body in way. Glanced forward by Sawyer. Bit of head tennis in the Oakleigh half, and a free kick materialises for them. So that wasn't really much of an enterprising position. That's a decent result. And after some deliberation, taking it quickly, keeping the numbers moving, they will take a proper set piece. Or maybe not. McGill curls it into the box. Valentini attacks it, but doesn't make contact. It's still alive for Oakleigh on the edge of the area, but Payos is able to ride the challenge. And although it looks as though he'd returned to his feet to keep it moving, Adam Bavka pulls it back for the free kick, which I think is the correct call.
And that certainly was the correct call, that one. Emil Payos cleverly putting his body between opponent and ball to draw that free kick. Well, like we're about to find out how many minutes of stoppage time we will get in the second half. It looks to me from my obscured view like it might be 3.
There you go. 3 minutes added on to the game here at Jack Edwards Reserve. Perhaps time enough for 1 or 2 more final forward forays. At full stretch was Jankovic. Sawyer let it bounce over his head. Mikola contests, and it just flicked away. Sort of anywhere will do type stuff from Connor Hampson. But South win the ball back. Can they finish with a flurry? It's Marshall for Morgan Evans. One ball forward. Prodded away by Boyce. Such fine margins in this game. Mikola tried to bring it down. And the break might be on here for the Cannons. Guest fires one into Valentini, who's got a leap on him, but that was overcooked from a man who doesn't put many feet wrong, Joe Guest.
Well, he's been in that situation 10 or 20 times tonight, Joe Guest, and he's hit probably 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. It really is so impressive, the regularity with which he executes those kinds of passes to perfection.
Kubalay on the march. Knocked along for Manib Adis, who drives it low, but well, the end result is the same as many a shot that Oakleigh have had this evening. Directly in line with the body of Harvey Lopez, who makes a regulation save.
Yeah, it's probably been the main thing that's been missing from both teams, is testing the goalkeeper. We saw that McGill shot in the first half, which, well, we'll pause that as looks as if there's been a bit of a shove from Brodie Boyce into Harry Sawyer, who's in turn clattered into...
Oh, both these players are on a card as well. I think it might be McGill who...
The man who we were just speaking about.
Yeah. Well, that's what the South players were making the point, that he was on a card. I don't know whether it was worthy of a second yellow. No medical attention. We'll get straight into the main event, this free kick.
And then what will be one of the final chances of the game, Mario Barcia to deliver. Goes to the far side of the box where Jankovic had a lot to do. Barcia trying to keep the attack going, and indeed he does. Barcia with Valentini for company. McGill back supporting. Now the Cannons will look to go in the other direction, but there won't be time. As referee Adam Babcock blows the full-time whistle. 0-0 the score. There was to be no way through for either team, who will continue their unbeaten starts to season 2024. But they're forced to settle for a point each on the night. A game with no goals, but no shortage of entertainment either, Lockie Flanagan.
Absolutely not. The undefeated streaks continue for both sides, and look, over the course of a 26-round season, I think a point from Jack Edwards, even if a 0-0 scoreline isn't usually what the neutral wants, I think it's what both of these teams will be satisfied to take. There was stuff to build on for both sides. For South Melbourne, they maybe ended the first 45 on the back foot, but they were able to find some really solid, clear-cut chances in that second 45, while for Oakleigh, they found openings, they did find avenues to goal, but they'll be left to lament that really when those opportunities did present, they weren't able to test Harvey Lopez in the way that you'd expect an attack of the quality that Oakleigh have got at their disposal to really do. But if we needed any more evidence, examples, we just got another that these two teams will be sides that will feature prominently at the top end of the table this season.
That's all the time that we have for tonight. Full-time scorer Jack Edwards reserve. I've been Oscar Rutherford, joined by Lockie Flanagan. Oakleigh Cannons 0, South Melbourne 0.
Hay un montón de espacios. Ahí hay un montón de espacios. El que juega ahí está lesionado.
Igual existe rival y jodido, anda bien.
You could definitely be a lot worse. Not the commentary, I mean, you could definitely be worse. That was the point I was saying. No. Yeah, yeah. No. The A-League stuff takes up the Monday to Friday weekend. I don't know. So, sometimes it does feel like